Welcome back. Today, we're going to be sitting down with Mijo Alanis, the founder of Beyond Juicery and Eatery. In this episode, we dive into his wild ride throughout the restaurant industry and how he started franchising his brand, which is now taking off. It seems like Mijo has always been one step ahead of the game. And in this episode, he's going to be telling us his secret to success. This is one of my favorite episodes. I hope you enjoy. Mijo, how's it going?
Great.
Welcome to the podcast.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. Let's just jump straight into it. So we were talking right before the show started a little bit about how you got into the industry. Wanted to hear from you, and maybe my audience can learn a little bit more about your story and what inspired you to start Beyond Juicery. So if you want, you can start all the way from the beginning, or you can start wherever you want, but I think it would be awesome for my audience to hear it coming from you.
So the beginning is actually where inspiration came from. So I'll let you know that. I started off washing dishes when I was 15 years old because I needed a car. And it was $400 for that car. And when I was washing dishes on Fridays and Saturday nights and going to high school, playing baseball, I was working hard. But man, my feet would be pruned and my hands would be pruned. And I would look out over the dish rack and see the prep cook over there. And the prep cook he was just like making stuff. His job looked easy. But there was one thing I noticed when I was in the dish room. I knew what people did and did not like because I had seen the remains in the bus tub. So fast forward, I went over to the prep cook guy and I asked him to teach me how to do his job. And he taught me how to do his job. And before long, I was actually doing prep cooks. Then as I was feeding the line, I would go up to the front and the cook, the guy, he was like, ooh, he was the dude. And I asked him to help me teach me how to cook. And before you know it, I learned how to cook. And I have always been looking for that next step up, step up. Fast forward, I became a general manager of that particular chain when I was 18 years old. And I was trying to do college, wound up getting married, had a daughter. And I knew that I could make more money waiting tables, bartending. So I was doing everything. I was actually the guy that they locked into the restaurant at night at 2:00 in the morning. And then they would open the door for me at 6:00 in the morning. I had to clean the whole restaurant. So when I say I've done every position in the restaurant, I truly have. Fast forward a few years past that, marriage didn't work out so well. And I'm working in a restaurant, always worked in corporate chains. And I was working in a restaurant and it was 2 minutes to close. And my future wife walked in, was not sitting in my section. And another guy asked me if I would wait on the table. Now, I tell this at our conference in front of everybody who works there. You know, we have close to, at one point, all my corporate stores, they had close to 600 people working. And that last minute, I actually waited on her. And we had some conversation. And before you know it, I asked her out. And she said yes. And we went out. And I can speak a lot about that. But she was going there in Arizona for international management. She was getting her master's degree. And when she graduated, which I still call it a conspiracy theory, she couldn't find a job. And she took a job in Michigan and begged me to come with her. That was 31 years ago. And I said, I will go out there, but I'm not working for your dad. Because her dad owned a restaurant that was established in 1967. It was a family restaurant.
Yeah, old school.
And yeah, old school. So I was working at various restaurants, but I still had the general manager,
right?
And I knew operations, and I knew how to run a restaurant. And her father, his name was Johnny. I called him Johnny. His name was John. He asked me to come work one day. I'm like, no way, man. He's like, can you just come help me out for a day? So I went in there, and it was, you know, I got to give them credit because they did a lot for what they had. But when I realized the systems and procedures that weren't in place, and I worked the day, and then afterwards we went out to dinner and they weren't talking about it. And I'm like, I got to talk about this stuff. Let's talk about it. So I brought it up and he's like, you want to come work tomorrow? I'm like, no. He's like, okay. He's like, why don't you just come back tomorrow? I'm like, Johnny. Anyways, I think it was after a few drinks, he convinced me to come back. And that day is the day that changed my life. He taught me what it was like to stick the key in the door in the morning, turn it at night. He taught me what electricity was. My mother-in-law Shirley taught me the the cost of a lemon, the cost of straws, of napkins, insurance, payroll taxes. Like I got to know everything. But the one thing they taught me more than anything was how to live the life of a restaurateur. I think that I'm in more holiday pictures with other families than I am with my own.
I know how that is.
I did hard work. I worked nights, and I believe that if it was any other woman other than my current wife, I don't think we would have made it, because walk-ins down, people walk out, problems, cook didn't show up. I had to go in. I was there. I laugh about it because I didn't really know the difference. I just thought that's what you're supposed to do as an owner. So, and they made me feel like I was an owner and a partner. And currently I am today a partner in that restaurant, me and my wife. My father-in-law has passed away, but we still own and operate that restaurant. But right around 2000, I was at the restaurant, and I started seeing hamburger buns and French fries thrown away. And I'd ask the question, why are they throwing them away? Because at that time we were trying to put more on the plate, make the plate look bigger.
Yeah.
And
supersizing everything.
No one knew. So I'd go to the customer and they'd say, I'm just tired of feeling like crap after I eat. I said, huh. So they wanted a substitute salad or sliced tomatoes for French fries, cottage cheese instead of hash browns. They were trying to substitute those. And I just really didn't grasp that idea just yet. And we still have a place in Arizona. My family's still from Arizona, so we go back frequently. And when we go back, there's a mountain. It's Camelback Mountain. And we'd climb it, and it's an extremely hard mountain to climb. But afterwards, we'd come back down, and I would go to this little juice bar there. Me and my wife would go to the juice bar. It was on Sundays. We'd go look at real estate, and I'd read the magazine. And I started to walk out, and I wanted to tell her, like, I feel so good after eating here. And it hit me. I'm like, that's what the customer is thinking about. Mm-hmm. So I thought about that, and I got home, and I was driving up the main drag here in Michigan, going to and from work. And I realized there's no place to buy a banana. Started thinking about that. There was Wendy's, which they right around that time started to bring on a salad, all the major players. And that's when the idea was born. And my wife and I scraped up all our money, and we went and opened our first smoothie shop. And when that first smoothie shop opened and that first drink went out, I'm like, what did I do? The customer came in, paid like $4, turn around. Yeah. They didn't do that in the restaurant business. They sat down, had an appetizer, they had multiple drinks, they'd order dinner. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to have to do like 150 customers.
You're going to have to churn it. Yeah.
To turn it. So fast forward to where we are today at my company meeting, when I'm talking to them, I'm like, if I didn't take care of that guest at that last minute, none of this would be here today. So it all comes down to taking care of the guest. That first guest is just as important as the last guest. And you never know what that last guest may bring to your business. And I've got last guest stories over and over and over again, from people who spend tens of thousands of dollars, who have my personal cell phone number. Some people became my best friends just because I took care of them just the same as the last customer, as the first customer. Anyway, so back in 2005, we opened our first smoothie shop, and I was doing like 35, 40 orders a day, and we just kept grinding. And I can remember many Sundays that I had to work in the back and my wife ran the register just so we could pay payroll. We still had our other jobs, so we were working really hard. And my first location was close to our house in Birmingham, Michigan. I was able to stop by there every single day. I had some great team players. Some of them are still here today that were able to grow and learn through the business. I would have to say I was probably about 4 years too early. But that fourth year, my goodness, we got busy. And when we got busy, people started knocking on the door saying, hey, how do I buy one of these? I want one of these. And I'm like, I had no clue. I had no idea what to do other than, talk to my attorney. My attorney says, don't do it. Don't do it. I'm like, what do I do? He's like, franchise. I'm like, I don't know anything about franchising other than like, how much does it cost? Because that was the thing. How much does it cost? And he's like, well, he's probably going to cost you around 100,000. He was way off, by the way. Yeah. And I'm like,
I'm sure higher, right?
Yeah.
Much higher.
And I'm like, I can't do that.
After his fees.
So I was very torn by the amount of people that wanted one of these my concept. And he said, why don't you go to IFA, which I still go to a lot of conferences. Matter of fact, I just came from IFA. And I went to the conference and I realized something. When I walked into that room, I walked into a new room with a bunch of other people like-minded like me with businesses that I was able to, like the clouds cleared and the conversations that we were having were so much different than the conversations that I was having at home. And that was probably the lift to move me to a franchising. And I said, all right, we're going to go back home. I'm going to open 5 restaurants. We're going to build out training materials because I learned all this at IFA. We're going to training materials, SOPs, job descriptions, operational playbook. And at the time, which not very many people know, I'm making my own food because I know that going back to what makes you feel good is all about the food. We've never really, advertised that it's about the food that we're making, the quality of it.
It speaks for itself, I'm sure.
So I like to say, when people come in, they feel good. They get their meal, it's right, and they take a bite of it, and they walk out and they feel good. They don't know what it is. They just know it makes them feel different. And I know if I can make you feel different, I can change the way you feel when you come in, I think that there's a good possibility that you're going to return, especially, that feel good part. So we were making stuff at my other restaurant because they had a full kitchen, and we were driving it and dropping off every day.
Wow.
And so we had to create the commissary piece of it. So we created the commissary piece. We built that out, and we opened 4 restaurants in 14 months.
Wow.
We were flying, and we decided to take the step towards franchising. And we opened our first franchise in January of 2018.
So much to unpack there.
Yeah.
I have to tell you this. My first job was at a juice bar at the gym. And there was a guest that would always come in every single morning right before we open. He was the early bird at the gym, like around 6 a.m. And I remember seeing before I got this job, the juice bar was always empty, even 30 to an hour minutes after the gym was closed. But I made sure to be there first thing in the morning to just something about me. I'm very punctual. And this guy would come in every single day. And I think it was a year into working at that business, he forgot his credit card and he only had $100 bill. And he handed me the $100 bill and he's like, I'm like, I don't have cash to give you. I don't even think we use cash here. It was mainly just credit card. And he said, nah, that's for you. Keep the change for all the hard work and all the customer service. And I think that was the moment that really clicked in my mind that you have to take care of people, right? At the end of the game, it's a people game.
Money's not the driving factor.
No, it's not at all.
And, typically what we find is the people that come to our place, they're mindful of what they're eating.
Yep.
And the price factor is not the issue when it comes to the benefit that they get from. Now, of course, in our boardroom is how do we keep these prices as low as possible?
Right.
The first thing is the benefit has to be there. It has to taste good because a lot of healthy products doesn't taste good.
Right.
And it needs to be priced right. If we can't hit on those 3, we don't launch it.
No, I totally understand it. And I think the conversation, especially these past couple of months to a year, has been about how do we lower prices? How do we give the most value? And I keep saying that it's not just about solely on price, right? It's about the entire customer experience and the positive externality that you provide customers by making them feel good. I think that speaks for itself. Like that is so much value you're providing to the customer. Let me actually double tap on when you were deciding to go franchise. Why didn't you decide to go down the licensing route? What stood out about the franchising model?
The licensing route, to me, you had less control. You basically license the name. Because my biggest fear was, I already know where the changes would be with other owners. I'll buy a cheaper chicken. I'll buy a different type of tortilla. I'll buy seconds at the produce market. So, and I didn't want to lose that control, which was part of all those conversations with my attorney is like, how do I ensure that this partner comes in and does exactly what I said? Say to even in the culture, our core values, as well as how we treat our guests and how we treat our employees. Because I believe if you don't treat your employees good, people ask me all the time, what makes you so successful? I can't put my finger on one thing. It's a bunch of tiny little things. It's in our opening when you come to work for us.
Right.
As when somebody goes to reach, my number one thing is the front door needs to be clean, needs to be spotless. Because whether you know it or not, when someone reaches for that door handle and they go to pull it open, if there's smudges on it, they're not going to say, oh, the smudges are bad or whatever. They're going to walk in. They go to the register and they go to order, and the screen's got a little bit of fingerprints on it. They're not going to say anything. When they go and they look at the stuff on the shelves and stuff's turned the wrong way and there's little dust on there, they're not going to say anything. They go to the bathroom and there's water spacks, so the toilet hasn't been flushed. There's paper towels on the floor. Doesn't look like anybody's throwing the trash out. They go to wash their hands. They leave. And then they grab their smoothie and the smoothie's got a little bit of drip on it. They're like, this place is disgusting. Like
100%.
It doesn't trigger. So as many of those tiny little things that we can work on every day that we already know that we have a great product, then we deliver it. It's like, it's confirming why they like this brand. We've made them feel good all through every step of the way, the whole journey as they get their stuff and they walk out the door. And then we're able to stay in touch with it.
Totally. So you wanted to keep that control, and you believe that the overall experience, especially the way that you present the food, the way you present the ambience, the way you present the store is as important as the prices and the quality of the food. So let me ask you then, when you started franchising, how did you keep that control? Because a lot what I hear is like when owners start franchising, it's almost like they're giving away their baby and they start to micromanage, making sure that everything is done correctly. What was that experience like for you giving the first franchise out, and how did you keep control as you start to scale?
So that's in operations. That's in your franchise agreement. That's in your operations manual.
That's right.
You wouldn't notice this until I tell you this, but in the movie Jurassic Park, I got younger kids and we actually watched Jurassic Park. And there's a scene where they call in and Samuel L. Jackson's there with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And they say, hey, the headlights are not working. And he said, yeah, I'm going to put this on my list. Number 1310, fixed headlights.
Yep.
So
all the way at the bottom.
There's a lot of that. So what you think you might know and what happens in real life changes. You just got to have a path in which you can go and fix it. I like to deliver the why. For instance, if I say we're wearing a green hat, and then the rest of the franchisee said, why we're wearing a green hat? I don't want to wear a green hat. Well, I want to deliver the why to them. So before we walk out the door, I want you shaking your head. I get what Mijo's saying, or I get what the brand is saying. I understand it, because then when we get it, then they own it. And when they own it, they live it. And when they live it, then we can feel it. So those are those tiny little things when it comes to, and don't get me wrong. I mean, what I've really realized over the course of this last, 6, 7 years is franchisees have great ideas.
They do.
Like, some of them have great ideas, and we're able to bring those in. And it was for the first time ever that someone else was looking at pricing. Someone else was looking at, the things that only I looked at, insurance costs. When you start growing, you forget to go back and, start looking at these things. Do I have the right phone carrier? Is our distributor right? Which is, by the way, during this time, when you talked about inflationary times, we went to our suppliers, and I wasn't telling them. I literally told them, I'm like, for us, we're trying to get financially fit, which means instead of pointing at you, we pointed at ourselves and like, what are the things we can do right now to become financially fit, to get more nimble, to get leaner? What you're doing is you're getting a price increase from the people you're getting it from, and you're passing it straight through to me. What are you guys doing? Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is when the consumer quits purchasing, that's when this is all broken. And if we continue to keep rising without looking at yourself, if you're not looking at yourself to see what can I do, and I've seen this, and I said, and if you don't, then you give me no choice but to go look for an alternative.
Yeah.
And some of them thought I was crazy. I went and I found alternatives that were a 10% swing. From their 5%, I was 5% below what I was paying before. Mm-hmm. So people appreciated the amount of volume, or could see my vision, could see where we're going, was hungrier for the business. So I strategically now can look at vendors and ask them different questions. Aligning on core values is a huge thing. Like if you're not aligning on core values, it may not happen today, but eventually at a certain point when rough waters happen, they're going to be thinking one way and you're going to be thinking another. And then you've built this foundation on a house of cards. When it comes to the franchisees, yes. Have they all been great? But no, but once I learned, now I have the conversations with the head of time. Are you agreeing to be part of the community? Are you agreeing to take care of your employees? Because we're going to have these discussions all the time. My teams, that's what they're going to monitor when they come in. They're going to make sure, and we can tell right away. I can tell in any restaurant when I go in right away whether or not there's a system in place for. I like Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's is a great example. You walk into Trader Joe. You have Trader Joe's?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the number one place I shop.
I don't care what Trader Joe's I go into. It's
a good example.
Register smiles, says something nice about me, and has conversation. Now, is that by design or was that by training? I don't know. But every single one of them opens the egg carton up. Every single one of them opens the egg carton and looks at it. Although I already did it and I watch it and I'm like, that is the piece that there's these tiny little things that people do or companies do that make you feel different, that you're wanting to go back there again. So I take these nuggets from conferences and apply them to, I used to say, hey, I'd have general managers say, this person isn't good at the register. And I'm like, well, maybe they're not registered people. Doesn't mean they're a bad employee. Just means that they need to be doing something that they excel in. And as a leader, that's where you put the right people in the right places and don't expect them to do the things that they can't do. Now, going back to me, if they're trainable and they want to learn those things, then you're able to train them to get them to where they want to be. Those are my favorite people. I can't even tell you how many kids that I've raised, so to speak, to go on college degrees and buy their own restaurants. Some have become franchisees of the model. So those are the things that really, truly inspire me, is that when then I feel like, I used Steve Jobs as an example. He created this iPhone, and on this iPhone, there's all these icons. So what he did is he truly created a canvas in which all these entrepreneurs could go out and just the expansion from this thing is unreal. So I think of the same thing with me is in 20 years from now, how many people's lives will we have changed? If you have the heart and the desire, I like to say, you're going to be working anyways, right? You're going to work no matter what. Why not work for yourself? Which is something that I always found out for myself, because I felt that I worked really hard, like really hard. My parents instilled in me, son, I don't care if you're a ditch digger, just be the best damn ditch digger there was. Unfortunately, sometimes I don't know what place I'm in. So I'm working really hard. I don't know if I'm in first place or I'm last place, but I just know we're on a path with a great vision and we're heading that way.
Amazing. I can tell just listening to you speak that you are definitely the visionary. And when I think of, especially on my team, I look at myself and I consider myself more of a support character. I'm more of the operations guy. I make sure that everything gets done on time, and I let my CEO make sure that he has everything he needs in order to run the vision of the company. And as we start to grow, I start to see that there are certain people that have certain tendencies. I believe it's very difficult to teach hospitality to someone. I don't know if you agree with me. I think that some people are just born with it. You can coach them, you can train them a certain way, but some people just have it in them. And what I liked what you said is that you need to find what someone is good at and give them the path and give them the right training to succeed in that particular area. And then when thinking about bringing on franchisees, what are the sorts of questions and the criteria that you evaluate to make sure that they're the right fit for your
First
brand?
The question I ask them is, why? Why do you want this? Why this path? And then I ask them the financial expectations you think that you're going to get from this. How much time you planning on dedicating towards this? I mean, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Founder.
I have multiple times, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is almost dead nuts on as to like what you can experience right away is the fact that the expectations didn't align in the beginning. Yep. And it was my fault, because I didn't ask those questions. But again, we're going to get 1% better every day and fix those things moving forward. So I like when they've done the research and they're wanting to buy into the core values, when they're wanting to buy into the vision and they want to live the brand. I used to say this about management teams and even team players is I would rather have someone all heart than somebody with all talent and no heart.
100% agree.
Because
Totally agree with you with that.
with heart, I can give you the tools and the training to get you where you want to be, but it's going to take heart to get there. And I used to tell the team, if I get one good comment, and when I mean good comment, it's like someone goes out of their way to grab me, Mijo, and tell me thank you for what we provided to them, that makes that month worth it. So, because sometimes it takes a lot for someone to say that to you. More people are apt to tell you the bad things you do versus the good things you do. I was just bringing this up yesterday. I had a girl that she just retired from one of my restaurants, and she was worked for me for 20 years. And I'm like, Mary, wow. Like, what was it? What was the driver? And she said, I love the customers. I love them. And ironically, I heard Danny Myers having a conversation with Anna Katessa. I forget her name. She's on Food Network. Okay. And she asked him, what's your favorite restaurant? And he said, it's the same as yours. It's the one that loves me the most. And I'm like, as I reach out into the world and I see what we're doing is that we're a living and breathing organization that is living by a certain set of goals that's working. And the more people that we have like that, and you got to have a strategy and plan. I tell them, if you don't love what you're doing, why spend another day? Why spend one more day, one more hour doing this? Go find your passion. There's a passion out there. There's 28,000 other franchises. Let's figure out how to move on. Or you can change your mindset a little bit and live the life that which you bought into. I get a lot of, you're right. There's a special person that has to, when you get a franchise, they don't sometimes really understand what it really truly means, but you're following a set of rules and guidelines, which has been built over time and has proven success. Don't try to reinvent that, because I'm the driver of the ship. Everybody needs to be rowing in unison. And if I got one oar going faster or going slower,
tip over.
We're not going to hit our destination, right?
That's right. I love that. What are your goals for the next couple of years?
Opening franchises. So back in 2023, we were hit with the food cost changes and labor issues, and we really focused in. Our goal for that year after that was to lower food costs. We were able to lower food costs by 8%. We were able to drop food costs by 8%, and labor costs we were able to drop by 3%. And that's by strategically re-engineering the menu, bringing things in, getting items off, going and really negotiating hard with our distributors.
That's right.
Some key products, making sure that we tighten those relationships, them understanding where we're going and how we're going to get there. Because I know the number one thing that every franchisee says to me when they meet me for the first time is, how much money am I going to make? And I want to be able to give them as much money as possible, because I know that if my food cost is in line, labor's in line, we do the real estate properly, we have the build out at the right cost, and we can get you an ROI as quickly as it can, I'm going to have more candidates, just because I've been to IFA, I've been to these conferences, I see these other brands gaining momentum, and that's where we are.
That's right.
The piece that I like the best is we have a food product that's different than a lot. And it's a main focal point as to, it's not coming out of a bag. It's basically chef prepared meals out of our kitchen. And we use cool new technologies in order to deliver the freshest, healthiest food we possibly can do.
That's right. And let me ask you then, the model is you have commissaries that delivers.
No.
You prepare all the food, or is the food prepared on site?
We did that before.
That was in the past.
So yeah, in the past we were doing it, and one day when the tire blew on my refrigerated truck, and the phone call comes and says, by the way, the week before he got ran into, and he's telling me what's going on, and then I got to juggle, and I'm like, what business am I in?
Mm-hmm.
Am I in the manufacturing business? Am I in the distribution business?
Right.
I'm in the restaurant business. I'm in the franchise business. So I always heard about co-packers. So I went to New York. I went to Atlanta. I went to Miami. I went to California, went to Chicago, and started talking with people that can make my product the way that we wanted to make it.
Right.
The issue was even locally is finding someone to make our product in. Sometimes we're way too big and sometimes we're way too small. Either way, I always say we're in between pant sizes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to go and convince somebody that's big enough to handle us that we're going to get there. And then they got to make it the way we want. And then you got to make sure they can deliver. Like they got to be. So we've gotten really good at that over the course of the last 2 years, where I don't think we're manufacturing anything at the commissary level anymore. And we have really good support. I got an opportunity to go to California in the Salinas Valley. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's the most incredible place in the world.
It's tremendous.
It's one of the most fertilest places in the world. So their produce farms, literally the manufacturing of them moves with them as the season goes. It moves all the way down. The company that took me out there was called Marcon. Marcon didn't really do anything other than the fact that they were there speccing, making sure that what they were giving to their customers met their needs. And I thought that was remarkable. And I saw it on the fields. I saw they were measuring them to make sure that they were correct. If there was any blemishes, it went into that box. And I'm like, where's that box going? They're like, that's going to X supermarket. This one's going to this supermarket. And I'm like, why? And they'd say, well, these ones will accept a certain grade and the other ones won't. And Marcon was there to oversee it, to make sure that their customers getting it and making sure, like from the time it was cut, from the time it was put into the warehouse, the time it was delivered, the time it was get to the truck. I got
boots on the ground inspectors.
There were boots on it. Well, they were. So I said, we need to do the same with our co-packers.
Yeah.
That's where their true value is, because that's what they do. And I love to say this to people. What business are you in? Because I'll find a lady that comes to me and she's got a great candy bar, or a great healthy thing, bread, whatever. And I can see it. I'm like, what business are you in? She says, well, I make bread. I'm like, who does your sales? Oh, I do. I'm like, who manufactures it? Oh, I do. I said, who distributes it? She's like, I do. Sooner or later, you're going to have to pick one, because you can't do all three, which goes back to what you were talking about earlier. I did go to a Tony Robbins Business Mastery event in 2016. It was like 5 days of intense information that I was able to soak in. Everything we talk about, he has touched my life in that manner. But one of them was, there's 4 parts of the business. There's visionary, manager, leader, entrepreneur, and board of directors. And once I figured that out, I was all 4.
What's the difference between the entrepreneur and the visionary?
Visionary. So that was my largest struggle, was between being those two. And I didn't realize it. And that was, I worried about money. And as a visionary, as an artist, sometimes it's very hard for them to pull in the money side of it and be able to make their vision come true. So when you pull in that other person, that help that you're going to need, or the support that can tell you, your artist's mind or your visionary mind, how we're going to get to where you want to be. With, in some cases, I think I was a little naive. And if I would have known some of this stuff ahead of time, maybe I never would have done it. But I didn't have a plan B. Like you had to execute. And for the life of me, and every restaurant I've been in, I could not understand why you couldn't make it work. All you had to do is take care of the guests, give them what they want, listen to them, talk to them, hear them out. And I knew that if I did that, and you had my phone number, like anything you want. I was shaking everybody's hands. I was at the front door. I was seating them. I was making their drinks. You name it, I did everything for them. And I thought, that's the way that everybody did. I just assumed that's the way everybody did it. So as I got older and getting more wisdom, I really realized there is a differentiator between every restaurant, and there's the operations piece, there's the brand. So those are the things that we work on, that we refine. Is it easy? No. And nothing's easy, nothing, but it's, again, that the reward whatever your reward is, if you can attain that reward for yourself, then it becomes fulfilling and you have a purpose. And that's
Amazing.
basic human needs is you got to have reward. My wife and I, we talk about the future and what it holds and retiring and these kind of things. I don't know if I'll ever retire. I go on vacation and I'm like, oh, this place is nice. And by the fourth day, I'm looking, where can I put a store
Yeah.
here?
I'm the same way. I was recently in Vietnam I was there, supposed to be there for 3 weeks, decided to come back a week early because I was like, I'm itching to get back to work, but amazing. I've noticed a trend from the conversation and also from learning more about you is that you truly are a visionary and you've been ahead of the curve a lot of the times. You started in this industry, what I would consider is healthy eating, good culture. You were in this industry and almost like a trendsetter ahead of the curve. And then I also read that you started doing the mobile app way before anyone else did. And
considered crazy.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's like, why is a restaurant developing an app? It boggles my mind. And right now, this is the last thing I want to ask you. Right now, we're seeing a shift. We'll see if it actually comes true, but we have new administration. We have without getting political, we have a certain person in the House with RFK that is going to be mandating healthier eating across the board, whether it's in our school systems and restaurants. And I think that's personally, if I had to take a bet, I think that's going to be extremely impactful for restaurants. It's going to be extremely impactful for schools. And I think it's going to trickle down into our society. If you had to say something about this upcoming trend, do you think you're positioned in a good spot right now? And where do you see the industry going?
So going back to my bus tub analogy, I have bus tubs all over the place. When I look inside those bus tubs and I can see what they do and do not like. I was going to bring that up earlier with the administration and RFK. I really got to know a lot more about him in the past, I'd say, year of understanding who he is. Again, not to be political, but that guy's like 69 years old.
He looks amazing.
He
blows me away.
He's rich.
He's
and
rich.
I'm like, oh my goodness. And what I'm seeing, I have an 11 and a 14-year-old. My kids today are eating nowhere near what I was eating it for. Like they are so keen on what's in stuff and talking about protein, talking
That's
about carbohydrates, talking about the energy level, talking about sodium. I mean, I was going to McDonald's every day for lunch when I was and for $2 burgers, and they will give me suggestions all the time. And then I can tell you some of the places that, I don't want to sound like I'm crazy, but you take your kids to any party, anywhere you go, I don't care where it is. You know what the number one food is going to be there?
Pizza.
You're right. And my kids for the first time are saying, can we eat before we go there? And I'm like, why? And because we don't want to eat pizza, Dad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow.
You raised them right.
I don't necessarily think it's raising. I think it's the environment, which I brought that up earlier. The environments are changing. And with the exposure of our food systems, which is, by the way, the environment's rapidly changing right now I'm learning stuff that I thought about, but I didn't really know. You hear things, but as you got to go out and dig and do your information. And sometimes you dig too deep, you might be ahead of the curve. You know what's coming. And that's kind of where we live. I look at the school system. My kids don't like to eat at school. It's free. It's free. And I look at the school system and I'm like, where does Beyond fit there? Where is it that maybe it's meal prepping for kids? Yep. Maybe it's meal prepping for the teachers. Maybe it's meal prepping. We don't need a lot for as far as not everybody can afford it. How do we work legislation in to help subsidize it? I mean, there's many things that we can do, but there's clearly a gap.
I agree. And
because I'm living in this space and I go to school and it's breadsticks one day, pizza the next, chicken tenders, which I know that I look at the different types of tenders. It's fruit juices, like high corn syrup fruit juices. They're giving them to the kids. The kids are consuming them. How do they feel good about themselves an hour after lunch? We're just pushing all this stuff. So you got me on my
Yeah. No,
Totally aware with this.
I know.
And that's why I think there's great
I grew up,
opportunities.
and I grew up as a product of the LA Unified Public School System. My parents could not afford food, so everything was subsidized for me growing up. I was a heavier kid, and I wonder how much of that was due to the fact that I was eating coffee cake for breakfast, and I was eating pizza for lunch, and I was snacking in between getting sodas and chips at the vending machine. And then for me, it clicked when I got to a point where I went to the doctors and they told me at 16 I was diabetic, pre-diabetic, and something in my mind just flipped and I could never go back to that food again. And that's why I ended up working at the gym after losing a lot of weight, selling protein shakes at the gym, working at the juice bar. And then my first business was I was selling meal preps to my personal training clients. So for me, it's always been around good food because something in me clicked and I realized what I was eating was not making me feel good. If I eat a pizza for lunch, I'm going to feel like shit. I'm going to be sleepy. And I truly believe if I had to put money on the line that this is where we're going to go, especially with all these drugs, Ozempic. People are just not eating as much and are now starting to actually take a look and peel behind the curtain and see what's really going on. So I'm bullish on you guys. Not only do you have an amazing product, you also yourself, you seem like an amazing visionary. You're an amazing operator. And I think you are one of the few people I've spoken to that actually, I think, has a really good pulse on what it means to be a good leader. So I wish you guys the best. And if there's anything else you want to say before we close off on my audience here watching, potentially looking to franchise, any last words you want to tell them?
Doesn't cost you anything to check us out. Just come check us out.
Love it.
Peek underneath the hood and take us for a test drive.
Love it. All the information will be in the description. Thank you so much, Mijo. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.
All right. Talk to you. Thank you.